Hi, I'm Pat Mangan, Director of Governance Education at NRECA. Welcome to Governance Talk. Curtis, you are a director on the Sulphur Springs Valley Board in Arizona, also a member of the NRECA board. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me, Pat.
Given that you have announced that you are going off the NRECA board, I wanted to have you come in and talk a little bit about your experience. Let's start with going back to 1993 and you getting on your local co-op board. How did that come about? And let's start there.
Sounds good. Sounds fair. So my wife and I were married in 1980. We moved in a couple of years after that to southeast Arizona. We came out of the Phoenix area. The Gilbert was a big farming area at that time. It's not anymore, it's houses. But we moved down there to start farming. And we were there for about 10 years, and I got a postcard in my mailbox saying that my district was up for election for someone to serve on the board. Mm-hmm. I had a friend that was on the board, a fellow farmer, knew him real well, him and his family. And so I called him kind of excitedly, hey, Wayne, I'm going to run for the board. He said, I got a notice in the mail. He says, well, that's my district. I said, well, I'm not going to run then. He says, no, go ahead. It's totally fine. So I thought, well, why not? So we put our hat in the ring and ran and won by 3 votes.
Very good. I remember a story you told me years ago about fishing with your father, and there was a knife involved. I remember the moral of the story was don't drop the knife. Tell that story, would you?
Well, my dad took me fishing. We were in a little Coleman boat, little Evan Rude motor on the back. And
about how old were you?
I was in 6th grade at the time.
Okay.
So, and he bought me a brand new Shakespeare rod and reel set.
Yeah, nice.
It had a bail you had to flip over and hold the line, and it was a cast. It was new to me versus a little thing you just click with your finger and let it go. It was rather complicated, actually. My dad had a nice one, and I had a shorter one, but it was he spent some money on this equipment. And we're fishing in Roosevelt Lake, and I just keep making a mess with, I'd let go too soon on the line. Anyway, I was just creating havoc. So I'd hand it to him. He handed me his that was ready to cast. Do the same thing, whatever. It just took me a while. We kept going back and forth, and he's helping over there. Some of the knots were kind of tight with his pocket knife. And I'd noticed he had this knife. It was on his dresser a lot. Mm-hmm. And he stopped to pause and tell me about this knife that his dad gave him on his 16th birthday. Mm-hmm. That he's never lost this knife. This knife is kind of, to him, an heirloom. His father's gone at this point in time. Mm-hmm. It says something, he says, I've always kept it sharp. I've always kept it clean. Mm-hmm. It's ready to go when I need it. And your son, you're going to get this knife when you turn 16. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be able to give it to your son when he turns 16. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't grab the enormity of what he was saying. I mean, I could hear it, but it didn't impact me. Okay. And I was careless with the knife, trying to undo one of those knots that I had made, and it went overboard and fell in the lake.
Yes.
And it was gone. And it just, as much as I wanted to not drop the knife, I already had done it. As much as it hurt him to see that, it was, I suppose you could say, Dad, you made a mistake giving it to a little kid. But I'm the one that dropped the knife. And I think as we think back of what was done to start our co-ops in an era when there wasn't any money, those that were started in the 30s, I mean, this is Depression stuff. Mm-hmm. And the pictures of those people, the Next Greatest Thing book, if you look through there, that were just wore out from the burden of farm and ranch life at an early age.
Yeah. It took years off their lives.
Yeah, and how they ever got 200 people to give $5 in our area in Cochise County, southeast Arizona, to start this. And Mark Bliss was the county agent, and and then they started. They got a loan. They put in a generation plant. They put in transmission lines, and the distribution lines.
It boggles crazy. The mind. The courage.
I think in the boardroom, when we don't remember where we came from and the effort that was put in, and to understand we have a role today, it's different than that role. It's a good role. It comes down to, if you're not asking questions, you're dropping the knife. If you're not engaged in what's happening at your co-op and trying to make it better and build those relationships with that team around the table, I think you're dropping the knife. And there's consequences to that. We forget where we came from and why we why we do what we do today. It's different, but it's important to remember where we came from. I think that gives us a vision. I think it gives us a pathway forward. And, you know, we all drink from wells we did not dig. We all are warmed by fires we did not build. But while it's our turn to be digging wells and building fires that somebody else is going to benefit from, let's do our job. Let's do it together.
Curtis Nolan, thanks very much for coming in today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.